So, a lot of people have been asking what I think of the new Peabody and Sherman movie that's coming out next year. Well, I was going to do a Waddle's VCR on it, but to be perfectly honest, I only really got opinion, and it doesn't really sound like it'd make a funny episode, so I figured I would just give the opinion as the voice of Waddle. Well, first off, I wasn't even aware that they were making this movie until somebody sent me a still from it. And when I saw it, my first reaction was less than joyful. Let me back up. For those of you not familiar, Peabody and Sherman came from the Bullwinkle Show, which was produced by Jay Ward. Jay Ward's cartoons had quite an obvious lower budget than what you'd see in theaters years earlier, as did most television productions. But their humor and their likable characters, budget didn't really seem to matter. The Rocky and Bullwinkle segments were social satire, Fractured Fairy Tale were classic story parodies, and the Peabody and Sherman were history spoofs. Mr. Peabody, an intellectual dog with his pet boy, Sherman, would go back in time and have adventures, and occasionally mess something up and have to fix it. Kind of like Back to the Future. I love it. I love everything Jay Ward does. So what's my problem then? Well, to be blunt, and I know most people who know me already know exactly what I'm gonna say, I really don't like 3D CG animation. I mean, I really dislike it a lot. I know some people, or actually most people, like it and even prefer it to traditional, but if you like it, that's fine, but for me, it's distracting and really unappealing to look at. Jay Ward's design and animation had a style to it, the way UPA did. It reminds me of newspaper comics, like Snoopy or Garfield, and yeah, you might say I'm being a bit biased, mostly because the cartoon, the style, and the animation I all draw inspiration from. I would have loved to see a widescreen rendition of this old style. But truthfully, I don't think producers would greenlit that. Although, if they made a Phineas and Ferb movie and kept it 2D, I think most people would see it, and the style is pretty similar. So, yeah, I was pretty disappointed about that. But after so many people asked me about it, I figured I'd give the trailer a try, and this is something I'd normally be worried about too. Full-length renditions weren't always handled right. Sleepy Hollow, The Grinch, the Get Smart movie, those are amongst the most insulting things I've ever seen. But Rugrats movie, the Beavis and Bud-Do America, the South Park movie were amongst the best. So I watched it, and it looked good. It looked really good. Seriously, it's what I expect in a Peabody and Sherman plot. The idea is Sherman takes the Wayback Machine and screws up history. Again, like Back to the Future. Oh, by the way, did anybody ever notice that when Marty goes back to 1955, he runs into farmer Old Man Peabody and his son Sherman? That's hilarious. Anyway, his doing it with a new girl character I think is unimportant and seems kind of forced, but I'll let it go, at least for now. The guest stars sound fun. Patrick Warburton is in it. I love that guy. He's going to go down in voiceover history with Frank Welker and June Foray. Mel Brooks is playing Einstein. That's awesome. And the voice of Sherman sounds like a kid. Like Sherman. That's a great choice. Peabody, on the other hand, doesn't really sound like he's supposed to. The character of Peabody is supposed to be a simple, monotone voice that never changes. He's like Castiel from Supernatural. He could say that the apocalypse is happening in a few seconds and still keep that same plain voice. The trailer showed him showing too much emotion and getting pissed off. I mean, that's not Peabody. He never raised his voice. That's pretty distracting. But everything else seems fine. So, I guess it's an even scale. I hate the animation style, but at least it stayed true to the design. I love the story and the characters, except for the main, which is a big deal. So, yeah, I'm about even on every point. I guess when March comes around, I'll give it a try and keep an open mind. It's good to hear that so many people are enthusiastic about an old idea. Hey, you know what they should do next? They should have a new Fractured Fairy Tale on television. Nowadays, with Once Upon a Time, Wonderland, and Grimm, it'd fit right in. Anyway, if you have any opinion, I'd love to hear it. Until next time, this is the voice of Waddle. Thanks for listening.